All right, guys, we're going to talk about WandaVision. This is going to be an interesting conversation. So we haven't reviewed an episode in a couple of weeks, and two have come out. Um, Last week was episode 4. We interrupt this program, and on Friday, episode 5, on a very special episode released. There's a lot that's going on. I'm interested to get you guys' hot takes, opinions on how the show is going. But let's start off with a couple of scores from each of you guys on the last 2 episodes. So when I look at week we interrupt this program, so I thought it was okay, good, not quite great, but I'm going to give it a 7. And I thought the episode on Friday, on a very special episode, I'm going to give that one a 6. Thought it was okay. Trey,
Tony,
what
you
about
go
you?
next. I'll go after Tony.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go. So 2 weeks ago, we interrupt this program. I will give it a 5. And then this week's episode, on a very special episode or whatever it was called, I'll do a 7 on that one. Good.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you
that's mine.
like this week's episode better than the last one,
Better
where
than
they kind of
last week's.
first broke
Yeah,
the barrier.
personally.
Okay. So I'm actually going to give episode 4, 2 weeks ago, a 7. And I'm going to give this week's episode, so 7, which is good. And then I'm going to give this week's episode an 8. I thought it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. So this is going to be interesting, talking about the reasons, because Chris, me and you are flipped now. Like I really liked the last 2 episodes because of some of the components that it introduced. So why don't we do this? Tony, I want to start with you. Let's start with you, and then Chris, start with you, and then I'll go last because I want to hear y'all's takes on it.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll start with last week's episode, which was, I guess, more the introduction to what's her name?
Monica Rambeau.
Dang, I just went blank. Monica Rambeau. So that was the reason I marked it so low, in my opinion. I was really confused. I had to watch it more than once, which I guess for them isn't a bad thing, but I didn't understand where it fell in the story of the snap. Obviously, that played a role in what was going on when she was pieced back together, but then it was talking about she was missing. It was just, I don't know. There was just a lot of confusion in that episode for me. To me, I almost felt like that episode should have been ordered differently. Like maybe start out the series with that episode and then go into everything else. Because, this whole time we've been talking about, is a okay, it's filmed as a sitcom, but someone's watching it, obviously. Why and how? And it seemed like they all just tried to cram it into one episode last week. Like, this is what's happening. This is who she was. It didn't really have Vision or Wanda in it very, very much. So, I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of it. Like, I could have done without that whole episode, to be honest. I did like, though, that, what's his name? Agent Wu. Is that his name? Wu?
Yeah.
Was
He's
in
really
it.
good.
The guy from Ant-Man. Like, he was, the comedy relief along Paul Rudd in the Ant-Man. So that was kind of cool. Call back to that. This week's episode I enjoyed. It was a little more, I guess, on the dramatic series than the slapstick comedy from what we've been seeing in the previous ones. It was neat to see Wanda come out of the barrier to address the drone that she saw flying at her. I liked the 2-second standoff Wanda and Vision had when he kind of started realizing something's not right. Yeah. Things like that. I mean, I could keep going. There's tons of things more. The drop to the what is it? My brain right now, man. The cosmic radiation where they said, I know an expert at this, and then they just never. It was kind of like a name drop, but kind of like a not as to what expert they're talking about. Because in the Marvel universe, there's tons of people they could be referring to. They referred to Captain Marvel in this previous one, which was kind of cool. Obviously, the final scene at the end was kind of like that. It was very 80s sitcom where Quicksilver showed up. It was like that special guest thing, like, hey, here comes our cousin from New Jersey or something, because he has a thick accent. So it's obviously not Pietro from Marvel's version who has the thick accent from Eastern Europe or Sokovian accent.
I really like Aaron Johnson, by the way. Just
yeah. I mean, I liked him in
like
a lot of stuff that he's been in the past, Kick Ass and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I like Evan Peters too from the stuff that he's done. So it's interesting to see what kind of spin they're going to take on that. I definitely left this episode a lot more looking forward to the next one to see how they're going to spin it. If they're going to spin it, they may not address Fox at all. Well, not Fox, sorry. They may not address the Fox Quicksilver at all, which would kind of suck because I'm sure a lot of fanboys, when they saw Evan Peters, was like, okay, here we go. We're going to get into the multiverse. We're going to start seeing, all this other stuff with what we know is going to happen with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange in their next releases. So maybe they'll dive into that a little bit, which would be pretty exciting. Maybe they won't. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I thought, just a quick point, Chris, sorry, before we kick it over to you. I thought that the scenes that they did with the Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men movies were really, really good. That's not really anything that I can remember seeing. And the way they did it with, the cinematography and the slowing it down, and it threw some comedy in there, and the music, like those are really, really memorable scenes. So I know I said I like Aaron Johnson, and I do, but I really like what Fox did with that character. And it also, they did a good job of kind of keeping him in check too, right? Because they could be like really overpowered. So sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, I agree with you, by the way. I actually think Fox crushed it with their Quicksilver. I thought the MCU's Quicksilver was meh. I like Aaron Johnson. I agree. So I think he's a great actor. So I don't have an issue with him. So it's interesting, Trey, because I think you and I are on opposite trajectories with the show right now. So we're earlier on in the show, I was way more tolerant of the pacing. I'm getting frustrated with the pacing as the show's progressing because they're sort of stubbornly sticking to it. And I think that showed through even on the most recent episode. I'll talk about last week's episode in a second.
Can I ask you a quick question though? Because maybe this is part of it too, why we're on opposite ends, but you really enjoyed the sitcom parts of it, where I enjoyed them. I just thought there was too much of them. Yep. And now that it feels more like a Marvel show, and maybe and again, just difference of opinions, because I want to see a superhero show. Like, I like when they show Wanda with her powers and when they show Vision with her powers. So I don't know. I wanted to call it out that I think that's also, it's almost been two different shows up to this point. The last two episodes have been different, where I liked that style. I have an appreciation for the sitcom part of it too, but to me it was just too much. So I wanted to throw that in for our difference of opinions. I think that's another driver as well.
And I don't have an issue, I don't mind the superhero power stuff. I think that's cool if it's done in the right way. But because they used their superhero powers in the very first episode. Right. Both of them were using them, but I think the way that they were using them was really interesting. And I thought they used the sitcom setting to maximum effect. Whereas they moved into the 80s, which I think we all agree is the most opportunity to mine it for great content. And they almost used it more as, just sort of background music. They didn't really embrace it, I don't think, as much as they would have. And I just thought the episode felt kind of odd to me. I think the way the kids are growing up, the dog dying, I understand that part of it is a journey that she is on, and things connecting back to, her own story, the parallel of, if she's trying to teach her kids something she herself can't get over. She's not capable of letting Vision die. The Vision starting to figure out kind of things that are going on. I guess to some degree, it almost feels like we're in this middle part for me, where it's you're checking off boxes that we already could see coming. Now let's get to the part where we're going to be really surprised, because I think nobody really knows how this thing's going to end. But I think people sort of figured out, yes, of course they're going to. Obviously, the kids, they're going to grow up a little bit. Vision's beginning to figure some of the things out. I just thought too, in the 80s sitcom setting, it wasn't interesting to me. I didn't think they did a great job. Yes, some of the clothes with the nosy neighbor, yes, with the neighbor sort of saying to Wanda, did I say it right? Do I need to redo this part? It doesn't feel quite as menacing to me as it did early in the earlier episodes, especially now that we know that Wanda clearly is controlling everything. Allegedly, maybe Mephisto somewhere is sort of involved. And then the reveal with Quicksilver, to me, I was expecting it to maybe be a little bit more meaningful and cool. Oh my God, it's the X-Men Quicksilver. but Kat Dennings' character, I thought, used a great line when she said, "Oh, they recast Pietro's role," right? And that works. I mean, it's a very meta comment because it works on a lot of levels. So it was a really, really interesting kind of comment. And I'm sure everyone's going to speculate what it means. But what I will say, Tony, is that they've said that WandaVision will connect directly into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So it is very possible that is actually like the X-Men version that's now there for whatever reason. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where everything goes. Like,
right.
So I think, to me, like, I'm still into the show and I still like it. But this was the first episode that I found myself just getting kind of antsy while I was watching it. Like, okay, I'm a little bit over the antics. Like, can we get to what's going on? Like, really dragging this thing out. So I'm really hoping that we see some escalation going forward. And I'll speak to kind of my comment about the structure in a second, but then going back to last week's episode. So I actually liked last week's episode. I thought it was cool. I'm glad they kept it to one episode. I think they had to establish, Tony, that, who Sword is. So it wasn't confusing to me. So I knew exactly what was happening when she came back. It was when Hulk snapped and brought everybody back. So I knew that was the case. And I thought, the other thing I thought was cool about that episode was that what you're seeing with WandaVision, whether you like WandaVision as a show or not, I know, Trey, that's a debate that we're having right now. But this is the first time that a show is actually directly affecting the larger movie universe for something that's pretty big budget. But then also, you're getting to see a different perspective of what happened in the movie. So in Endgame, when Hulk brought everybody back, we really didn't get to see like what it meant to people. So now you see Monica Rambeau coming back, and she actually talks about, I just thought I fell asleep. Like, so she's talking about what it was like without knowing she's talking about it. And then you're seeing the impact of people who have been gone. I mean, imagine coming back and like your family's moved on without you.
So my issue with how they're doing it, though, is they keep you you have no idea what's going on. I didn't the first time I watched it. I enjoyed that episode a lot better when I watched it the second time, because I had done research and I'm like, oh, okay, now this makes sense. But the first time you're watching it, which is kind of an issue with the whole series, you're like, so if the expectation is you watch an episode and then you go do research, then you go watch it again. Like, I get that, but I think that's very flawed. And it's tough to enjoy something when you're initially watching it, when they just, and it goes back to, well, we're just, we're going to be real, you keep everybody in the dark with this and what's going on. And I think that works on some levels, but I think that really hurt episode 4, because again, I enjoyed it the second time after we had talked about it. So I'm curious, how did you just pick up on it, or had you already done research on it?
No. So for me, let's address something real quick. So you were right. So Marvel's is actually getting bad about this. You saw it in Infinity War and in Endgame. If you were a casual moviegoer, you just went in to go watch Endgame or Infinity War, you would have no idea what's going on. They don't set anything up. They jump right into the story. They do very little to bring you up to speed on what's happened in the previous 20 plus movies that have happened. They just go right into it. And Endgame's even worse. And like, you had to have seen all these movies and know what was happening to know what was going on with Endgame. And I agree, WandaVision's the same way. With that said, I have seen all the movies. And so no, I knew exactly what was happening. And I really enjoyed that hospital scene, because what it showed her coming back was the exact way of people disappearing when the snap happened.
I liked it when I realized what was going on, but the first time I watched it, because you're trying to go, okay, what's going on here? And then you're trying to listen to the conversations. So they could anything to just say or show freaking Hulk snapping or whatever to make people go, oh, wow, okay, now I can enjoy this scene because this is what's going on. But again, maybe everybody else caught it and I missed it. But I obviously put it together after she was talking to the nurse, but I was just like,
it was probably mixed, to be honest. Some people did, some people didn't. I think I took for granted that, like, yep, it's snap. Like, this is really cool. But I think it did a couple of things. One, it connected directly to a movie event from an angle we hadn't seen before, which to me was like fascinating. And then you could see the hospital panicking because all these people are coming back that were gone. And then it also places a timeline without having to like explicitly say it. So now like it's within the first couple of weeks post when Endgame ended, basically.
But when it goes to that scene, you don't know that. That's my thing. And then I'm thinking, okay, are they coming back from the snap? Yeah, but this could be Wanda doing something. So that's where it was just.
See, I never thought.
Yeah, I'm like, well, because the series has been so crazy up to this point. So maybe this is something that Wanda is controlling in the real world.
Yeah.
Well,
So
one second.
Go ahead, Tony.
One thing I was confused by is the doctor tells her you've been missing for 3 years. At the beginning of of Endgame, when Cap is in that meeting and they're talking about how long everyone's been gone, it's been 5 years.
No, I don't think she said.
I haven't gone back and done the research.
She said her mom died 3 years ago.
Okay, she didn't say you were missing. You've been gone for 3 years.
Yeah, she said your mom died.
Okay.
She said, "Hey, where's my mom? Is she still here?" And she said, "No, your mom died from cancer." Because what she actually said is her cancer came back, and then she died 3 years ago. So it still was consistent.
Okay.
Was consistent with the timeline that was on there. But what I didn't think about, Trey, is the confusion that maybe people were thinking maybe it was Wanda. I didn't think that. I immediately assumed it was the snap, so it made sense to me. But I understand where you're coming from on it. But I did think it was cool. I like kind of the approach they took. I didn't think it was to me, it felt like a TV episode. It didn't feel like, a high budget, I'm watching a movie, which is one of the reasons why I didn't love every aspect of it. I like Kat Dennings' character. I don't love everything about it. I think it's a little bit hit or miss, kind of the approach that they're taking with her. And then it is a little bit weird. It's sort of that whole thing where usually you'd have a whole team of people trying to solve a problem, and it's really like just the two of them, or her just by herself figuring everything out. But I mean, I thought it was actually pretty interesting and pretty cool. And then I think my problem, and now going back to kind of the bigger thing with the series, I still really like it a lot. My biggest issue with it is that I think these companies have got to be smart about the release strategy. So how you release something. Certain shows are released all in now. Certain shows are released week to week. And then the length of the episodes, some of them are over an hour on some episodes that are released, and some are around 30 minutes like WandaVision. I think The Boys, if we look at that, we were talking about that yesterday, Trey, I think that they do it right. It's a full hour episode every week, and there's a clear beginning and a clear end with some sort of an event or something happening at the end that sort of hooks you to kind of the next episode to some degree. And I don't necessarily, and I know WandaVision is beginning to sort of kind of do that, but I don't think they're doing a great job of it. And I think that their release strategy, in my opinion, is hurting how we're viewing these episodes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they should have combined. You talked about earlier in earlier reviews, episode 1 and 2, make that one episode versus 2 episodes, because you move to the second episode and you're assuming things are moving forward, but that wasn't really the case. It was more set. So just make it one episode, or release the first half of the season as one, all together, so you can binge it. And then if you want the second half to really be about sort of what happens once you set it up. But the problem is they're taking so long to set the pieces up. And in my opinion, it's still moving really too slowly. At 30-minute increments, it doesn't feel fulfilling or meaningful as you're watching it. And what you complained about early on, I'm starting to feel now as I watch this last episode. And I really think in the end, if we were to watch it end to end, when it's all over, I'm still convinced it's going to be really good. But I just think the release strategies hurt how we're perceiving the show. And I think they need to be really thoughtful about this in the future.
Yeah, 30 minutes a week to me is not enough. And there's not enough that happens. These episodes could have been condensed down to about 3, I would say, instead of 5. So here's just a couple of my takeaways. On just Marvel in general, it's not like they haven't released a movie in almost a year. So this is all they've been. I mean, I know there's other shows that are in pre-production, but this is where I go back to episodes 1 and 2. And I like the third episode a little bit better, but like, this is what we get. This is what we've been waiting for. This is a 50s sitcom is what we get. I did like episode 3 a little bit more. I kind of got, a little bit more into it. I really liked the end of episode 3 when they kind of broke that barrier and Monica Rambeau got thrown out of the city. And then episode 4, I like, cause they just started to explain it a little bit. So I'm not saying you have to be so obvious with everything, but I'm not a freaking detective, man. Like I want to sit down and watch this show and just enjoy it. And when they keep you in the dark so much about everything, and that's where I just kind of go back. They're trying to be a little bit too clever. I'm with you on the episode where there was a big miss for the 80s background. I thought that was disappointing. I think they could have done a lot more. I mean, we didn't get any 80s music, right? That's a miss. And then, you know, I was some of my notes, because we talk about the series as a whole and where it's going and the build up, but that doesn't mean that the episodes shouldn't be entertaining on their own. I should be able to watch an episode and be entertained. And it shouldn't just be, well, I had to suffer through, you know, 3 or 4 episodes or a season, and then there's a little bit of a payoff here. Like, it's just, the bar is raised for TV shows. I talked about the series keeping everybody in the dark too much. It's interesting to see, and you guys have talked about this a little bit, the things that are starting to break down around Wanda. Like, I really like those scenes when the next door neighbor came over and she was like, you want me to do it again or take it from the top? And you see Vision, you know, starting to get the hang of it. And now Vision's kind of onto her. Like, to me, that was really cool. When she came out of the bubble, I thought that was one of my favorite parts of the show, because you actually got to see her for the first time as Wanda, right? Or Scarlet Witch, I guess. And you see how powerful she is, and they're pointing the guns at her, and they even have that standoff. And to me, that was like a really cool, like, because you start to see from the outside looking in what she's actually doing. And they imagine that they kind of started to explain what's happening in there and how they, you know, the assumption that she's controlling everybody, but like you said, it could be Mephisto or somebody that's controlling her. But then it goes back to she's so upset about Vision's death that this is the length that she's going to have what she would always have wanted with Vision, what they had talked about doing in Infinity War, right? Running away together and starting a life. So I really like that from emotional impacts. You're going, okay, well, she's doing all these things, and they talk about it in the episode. You know, people are in pain. She's hurting people, but she doesn't care because she's so heartbroken over Vision dying. I thought those were really good scenes too. When Vision was talking to the guy in his office, and he was, you know, he zapped him, and then the guy's like, I need to call my wife, I need to call my kids. So those things where they're breaking that wall and that barrier, that's where I got the most excited about it. I really liked the Quicksilver cameo, but I get so in the moment I thought it was really cool, because it was just cool to see an X-Men character in there. Mm-hmm. But as we're talking about it, it's kind of weird. And again, we're gonna be so cool and just do this and let people think about it. A la Christopher Nolan, maybe a little bit, but they're not Christopher Nolan. But I enjoyed it in the moment. I thought it was really cool because I didn't know who it was going to be when she was opening the door. So I like that. Now, I thought it was weird, and this is them, I think, trying to be a little bit too cute. They started rolling the credits of the show of the fake WandaVision show, and they're like, then her and Vision are like getting into it. So like, why do you need to, like, that took away from it? Because it was such an important moment where it's the first time that Vision confronts her about controlling people, and she's hurting people, and what is she doing? And then, oh, but let's be cute. Let's roll the credits because it's supposed to be a sitcom. Well, and I'm just like, why?
Well, no. I thought that was her that did that.
Yeah. So
they rolled the credits. Okay.
She's trying to
get away from the conversation.
Right. She's trying to bring the episode to the end. It's more that she's losing control of the sitcom. So it actually had a meaning.
I got you. Okay, I like that. Then. Never mind. See, that's why we talk about these things. Okay, that's cool. I like that. But no, that was I really that's why you should always tune in to get different perspectives of the Trey Show. But I really liked, and again, rating it an 8. I came away with the last episode. But I like the balance. Right. So I'm okay with the sitcom, but I want to see a little bit of what's really going on and make it feel a little bit superhero-y, I guess. Now, what I will say is, and I didn't think about this until I was kind of prepping for the show, you know, are we just watching like an episode of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? you know, because it's like the human part of it and they're focusing so much on it. There's not a lot of superhero stuff, and I'm still okay with that, but I do think they need to be careful of getting too overloaded with just normal humans, right? Because I can just go watch any show and see that. I can go watch CSI Miami or whatever. So I want to see, you know, make sure Tony's like, heck yeah. So I want to make sure that there's a balance of, and that's why I like the part when she came out of the bubble so much, seeing them as superheroes and making sure that there's enough incorporated into that.
So my understanding is it's supposed to get kind of crazy as toward the end of the season. So I think you're going to get your wish. And I agree with you. I think having the mix in there is going to be really good. But I totally agree with what you're saying. You cannot make it Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Cannot. Like the show, I watched that show for about 3 seasons. And
That was bad.
It was a beatdown, man, to watch that show. Tony, did you ever watch that show?
I tried. I couldn't.
Oh, wow.
It just is.
I just didn't like it.
It's that classic kind of TV showy thing where like people just do stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. There's no consequences to actions. The writing's not great. Like it just is. It's not good. They can never go back to that. And so I agree with you, Trey. If they're going to do a TV show about superhero, you need to have some superhero stuff that's in it for sure. But I think, but I still think they did a good job of a little bit of mixing that early on. And I think it's just now it's time for them to sort of transition to where the show is going to ultimately go. If it truly is, what I hope they're not going to do, I hope they're not going to keep this up until like the last 10 minutes of the show. Then something happens and then they're going to say that's what leads into Doctor Strange. Like I hope there's truly, well, what I'm really hoping is that there's a status quo changing event that happens in the show that actually changes it for the MCU as a whole. Because a lot of people think that this is potentially tied to the House of M storyline from the comics, where basically Wanda changes reality, not just within the bubble, but all reality.
Oh, wow.
Because she's so distraught over things that are happening. And so it'd be really interesting if that happens, or maybe she creates her own multiverse, you know, that's a new stream outside of the mainstream. I mean, so there's some directions they could go that I think would be very cool. I hope they do it and like commit to it. And it takes up 2 or 3 episodes. It's not just like the very end of the whole series.
Well, I think we're emotionally invested in her and Vision, and we've seen their relationship grow, and we saw him, you know, Thanos kill him. So I actually think if they stay on that path of, you know, she's doing this because she's, you know, she doesn't want to accept the fact that he died. I think that's kind of cool. It's almost like an Anakin Darth Vader type deal, but maybe they'll do it without shitty acting and a shitty script. But you kind of think about that and what molds people into what they are, and taking time to build that out. And if she were to turn, and I don't know how the House of M ends up, but for her to almost like turn into a villain because she's so powerful. Okay. I think that'd be kind of cool.
So I read, and I know we got to bring this one to a close, but I wanted to say I read an interesting article. I will go, I know we all do, after we watch the episode, we'll go do some research and read articles. And I love reading different reviews and kind of people's perspectives. There was a pretty good article someone was writing that one of the things that they wanted to give Marvel credit for was creating this gray area with Wanda. And then maybe that's a direction they're going to go more with some of the characters. Because, you know, in general, when you look at the characters in Marvel, they're very black and white. They're either a hero or they're a villain, right? Loki probably is the best example of maybe someone that sort of is in the gray. Having more characters like that would be a good thing. And that, you know, them embracing that with Wanda, really having that gray. And you talked about earlier, Trey, like she's causing people pain. She is almost the villain. Now, could there be someone behind her that's whispering in her ear and sort of like egging her on? I think that's still to be determined. But I do like that. I think that's a very cool thing because it creates a little bit of ambiguity of, can you trust her? Can you not trust her? Is she a villain? Is she a hero? I think that's cool. And I think to have a few characters like that in the MCU, I think makes it a richer environment. So everyone's not just like clearly good or clearly bad.
Yeah. Tony, last word, final thoughts.
You know, I'm excited to see where this goes. We got 2 more episodes left. I guess without getting too political into the series.
It's only 8 episodes.
Yeah, right. Didn't we find that out at the beginning of when we started this? I thought we said it was 8.
There's 3 left. Episodes 6, 7, and 8.
There's 3 left.
Oh, I was
Right.
thinking there
Oh,
was
okay.
it was 10.
This
Okay,
Friday
go
was
ahead.
episode.
So we
Go
got
ahead, Tony.
3
Sorry.
left. So we've got an hour and a half to wrap this up and make me decide whether I look forward to possibly another season or make me look forward to Falcon Winter Soldier or hope they make this non-canon and never touch it again. I don't really know. It's a possibility. I mean, you never know. I know they got big plans, supposedly, is what everyone's saying, but you know, it go. So we're in the 80s, so we got the 90s to go because I feel like they're gonna ride this sitcom wave until the last episode, which kind of works out because that gives us the 90s and then that brings us into the 2000s. So, you know, where are we gonna go from there? And then maybe the last episode will be primarily in today's or whatever year it's supposed to be when this is going on. I'm still invested in it. I think it's okay. I'm excited to see where it could possibly go, but then I think too it's going to be dangerous, man, because now with the introduction of Quicksilver as Fox's version, I mean, they could do anything. They could literally do anything. And in this Marvel, you know, we've got Agent U, we've got Darcy, so there's the possibility of where's everyone else during all this? Where's Spider-Man? Where's Ant-Man? You know, if it's all over the interweb or whatever that's going on about Sword, that there's this town that's been taken over. How come the other Avengers haven't found out about it? How come they're not trying to help? You know, that's the kind of interesting thing with you created the Avengers. You created a world where they all exist and they're all capable of being around each other. And yet being able to separate the majority of them and leave just a few and not have the others interact. It's tough, man, because my mind wants to be like, well, how come so-and-so hasn't shown up to do Doctor Strange? I mean, they watch everything they're the watchers or the seers or whatever. They know everything that's going on. Why hasn't he intervened yet? Or maybe he will towards the end. Because I guess because technically it's like a three-day time period of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Because
So
it's not.
cool.
Yeah. So it's still like within a realm of being like, you know, maybe he found out the second day or the third day. So I don't know. We'll see. And then, you know, really excited to see if they do incorporate the mutants in this somehow before this episode or before this season's over. So that's how I feel about it. Excited for the next episode.
All right. Well, we'll get back to doing an episode by episode review of WandaVision starting next week. So we'll bring this one to a close.